investor. We did this yesterday. It was extremely well received. I think you'll enjoy what you're going to hear today. You're going to learn a lot. So again, I want to thank you for being here. We will take questions at the conclusion of today's webinar. So if you want to ask questions, to your right of your screen, there is a dashboard there down towards the bottom. It says questions. If you just click on that, you can type in your questions, and we'll answer those at the end of the webinar. Okay, some more recent Case-Shiller Standard & Poor's Home Price Index. This was just from just last week, October 29th. I couldn't put the whole report on here, obviously, so I just want to highlight a couple of areas. First of all, across the country, we've seen from July to July, we've seen a 12.4% increase from year to year in most cities across the United States. I'm just going to highlight a couple of those. Vegas was up 29% from a year ago. That market is capped out. People ask about Vegas, what they call the diamond states, which is Vegas, California, Arizona, Florida, and Texas. I think of the diamond states, and the only one that's not capped out is Florida. I think most of those other states, you'd be running a risk investing in those states. But interestingly, up 29%, but still 47% lower than they were before the market collapsed. Same Denver and Dallas. They hit record levels in August. Average home prices still 22% below what they were in April of 2006. So even though they're higher than they've been in years, they're still way below the previous peak. And that's what you see pretty much across the country. Many of you know that Lori's chosen market is Atlanta, Georgia, and Birmingham, Alabama. I'm going to talk about that. But if you know those markets, you know those markets in both those areas are still not only appreciating, but they're still way below the previous peaks. Interest rates did go up. Most of you probably already know that. In June, we actually had the largest 1 week gain in interest rates in 26 years. It was about 0.5%, which is a lot for 1 week. But this is a release by Fannie Mae. I got this off CNN Money back in July, just basically saying that those are going to have really no impact on housing prices and the rebound of the housing market whatsoever. Now, remember, a lot of the money still in this market is being brought in by the institutional investor, and those folks don't rely upon interest rates. They raise money through investors. So it's really those interest rates climbing is really going to have no impact. We have really seen no impact from that at all. This is, again, CNN Money back in July, just talking about the decline in foreclosures. True, foreclosure filings, notices of default, bank auctions, possessions, dropped to 127,000 in June. Now, that sounds like a lot, and that is a lot. It's a lot of people losing their homes. But that's down 35% over the past 12 months. That comes from RealtyTrac. So overall, they hit their lowest level since 2006. So has inventory decreased? Yeah, inventory has decreased. There's no question about that. We have to be more selective, whether it be Alabama or in Atlanta, with selecting properties. You've got to be a little more thorough. You've got to be a little more patient. But the opportunities are clearly still out there, as you see by the institutional buyers. And we talk about this a lot. If you don't know this, institutional money is committed to $9 billion in 2013, which is almost over now, actually. So we're going to see $9 billion invested in single-family real estate in 2013. We think that a lot of that started back about 2 years ago when Warren Buffett was interviewed on CNBC, and they asked him the question, is investing in real estate a good idea? And he went on to say that, yeah, it's a great idea. And then he said, I would buy millions of single-family homes but I'm not very handy. He was trying to illustrate the point that it's not that easy to just go out there and identify the home, fix it up, do all the things that are necessary to do. You've got to have infrastructure. You've got to have partners. You've got to have things that can help you do that. Well, of course, being Warren Buffett, he then went out and he bought Prudential Real Estate. We now know, and I know this, I had a call with this gentleman earlier this week who's actually buying homes for Warren Buffett's investment portfolio. So knowing and understanding it's a great business, but also knowing and understanding you've got to have infrastructure to accomplish certain things. Warren Buffett bought Prudential Real Estate, now is very heavily invested in the real estate market. What Lori's going to be talking about today is essentially the same type of thing. You as a real estate investor, it's a great market, but how do you do it? Who do you partner up with? What's the best avenue for you to take with regards to your particular investment strategy? And that's what Lori's going to be talking about. If you don't know who Blackstone is, they are the largest owner of single-family residences in the United States today. We do business with Blackstone. We sell them several properties every week generally. We work with their Atlanta affiliate, and they do buy our properties. But they are the largest owner of single-family homes in the country. This is an interview that Jonathan Gray had with CNN or CNBC, back in July. And they just said, are you still buying? The prices have gone up, and the market is improving. Are you still? And he said, yeah, absolutely. We're still buying, and we can attest to that because we do sell them inventory. Now their criteria has changed a little bit, but their buying power has not diminished in the least. And of course, there's other institutional money out there as well. Blackstone's one of them. Colony Capital's one. Waypoint's one. If you don't know who the hedge fund giant John Paulson is, John Paulson was the guy that several years ago predicted the housing market was going to crash. His portfolio stood on the sidelines, waited for the market to come back, which he did. He then got back in. I think he's got something like $300 million of his own money invested in the real estate market. This was a quote that he said a couple months ago. It's not too late to get involved. Still think buying a home is the best investment any individual can make. We happen to agree with that. We still think it's a great time, and in a lot of ways it's a perfect time because not only is inventory still available, but the process in which the groups like Summit Assets goes through to select a property, rehab a property, identify the right property really probably is better now than it's ever been. So where do you go? One of the key questions you want to ask yourself, and Lori's going to talk a little bit about this, but I'm going to talk about two markets in particular. But the one thing you want to do is you want to identify the right market. And I get calls all the time, hey, Charlie, what about the Carolinas? What about Memphis? What about, Vegas? What about Kansas City, Missouri? We get asked all the time, what's the good markets to go into? And there's a lot of ways to answer that question. One I always say is that, well, wherever you go, make sure you got people there that you can trust to do business with, because that's critically important. If you're not living across the street from the home, and it's more of a passive investment, you want to make sure you've got partners that have a good experience and a good track record and are going to take good care of you. But when Summit Assets decides on a market to go into, this is some of the criteria that they use. You follow the money. Cities that have fallen hard but are recovering, that are making a comeback, a net flow of people moving in as opposed to people moving out like we have here in California, affordable cost of living, friendly to businesses, which is really important, especially in terms of being friendly to landlords. There are some states that aren't very friendly if you're a secondary homeowner, and taxes can also be a hindrance in some parts of the country too. Job creation is the government focus, quality of higher education, and then of course transportation, and then industries for the future. Those are some of the things that Summit Assets uses when they determine which market to go into. We're going to talk about two markets today, Birmingham, Alabama, and also Atlanta, Georgia. Lori just recently opened up Birmingham, Alabama. Matter of fact, she had a tour there just about 2 weeks ago, about 30 people on a bus going around looking at all her inventory in Birmingham. She actually had a TV crew from Japan that was following the recovery of the United States housing market, and they profiled Summit Assets Group. They profiled Lori's company, so she got some free airtime in Japan. Talking about Summit Assets Group in the Birmingham, Alabama market. This is an article from the New York Times I took off several months ago. Just sort of talked about how the city has really just changed for just a lot of reasons, and I'll talk about that. And then the Atlanta market's her other market. Lori's been there for several years now. I'll give you a bunch of statistics about Atlanta, but these are both markets that Lori's identified and both markets that are continuing to not only show great ROI but also tremendous appreciation. I'll talk about Birmingham first. So CNN Money names Birmingham the 10th best overall real estate market in the country, also the third fastest growing real estate market in the nation. New Wire says Birmingham is the third best cash flow market in the United States. And one of the reasons for this is there has been a large revitalization of the downtown district, and I'll talk about that in a second. There was an article a few weeks ago in Time magazine that profiled Birmingham. It actually was talking about, many of you may recall, the birth of the civil rights movement was in Birmingham, Alabama, when they burned that little church down there in 1963, and the 50th anniversary of that event was in September 13th, I think it was. So Time did a profile, and they were interviewing the mayor, and the mayor was saying, the city is just totally different than what it was 50 years ago. It's more a white-collar community now. It's not so much a steel town or a blue-collar town. The downtown obviously being revitalized. We talked about, industries moving in. Well, they had two recently, Mercedes-Benz and Honda brought plants into Birmingham. Those are really strong signs for the economy there. The downtown district, to the right here, you're seeing a photograph of the downtown area. This is now complete now. I believe actually when Lori was out there a few weeks ago, I think Linda got some, in our office, got some photographs of the finished multi-sports complex, which is what this is now. They have a minor league baseball team there called the Birmingham Barons. This is now their new home. It's a state-of-the-art facility. They've invested $1 billion in that downtown district. The Better Business Bureau announced back in, I believe it was May, that in 2012 there was more investment dollars in Birmingham, Alabama than at any time in their history. And it's not just the downtown area. To the left you see a picture of one of their parks. They've renovated many of their parks, their schools, particularly the high schools there have been renovated. The whole city has really been transformed. Boy, second paragraph here, this is interesting. Birmingham's ranked second in the nation for building personal net worth. That's really interesting. We live essentially in a service economy in America today. And when you have a place like Birmingham where you've got the second in the nation for building net worth, that means they've got disposable income. What does that translate to? Disposable income means that folks can go to a baseball game, they can take their kids to the ball game, go to dinner afterwards, they can get their carpets cleaned, or they can go to the dry cleaner, they can get their car washed. They can do things. What does that do? It boosts the economy. When we had the recession here in 2008, what got hurt? The service industry did, because that's where people cut back. They cut back on those things like that. Birmingham, second in the country for building personal net worth. That's a good sign of a strong economy. As I said, they've invested $1 billion downtown in that 24-hour multi- or mixed-use entertainment district. The University of Alabama at Birmingham, known for biotechnology, medical research, large financial community there in Birmingham. What does that mean for the housing market? Well, it saw a 17% increase in value from 2012 to 2013. It's going to see something very similar in 2013. I didn't use my charts and graphs today because Lori's going to take about 20 minutes to do her webinar, so I want to give her some space. But the inventory there is going down, but the housing prices are going back up. And having said that, still way below the peak. And the peak there was in 2007. It's way below the peak. Actually, it was 2006. It's way below the peak of 2006, but it is climbing. Now, Atlanta, most of you know much about Atlanta. You know, population of 5.5 million, grown by 2 million over the last 20 years. It is a growing community. Expected to grow by another 2 million more by 2013 and add 1 million more jobs. 40,000 high school graduates, 24,000 college graduates annually. Forbes calls it the #1 rental market in the country. CNN says the 4th best city in America to live in. Forbes again says the fourth most affordable city to live in. U.S. Economics ranks it the 3rd market for job growth. And of course, anybody that's traveled, you've been through the Jackson Hartsfield International Airport. It is the world's busiest passenger airport. I've been through there a number of times, and it is indeed a very busy airport. And part of the reason why you see this sort of growth in Atlanta is look at the types of industry you have headquartered in Atlanta. You know, Delta, UPS, Home Depot, AT&T, Coca-Cola. These are some big name companies, and big names is cool, but there's more to it than that. For example, if you were living in Detroit, you'd know that Detroit economy is based on the automobile industry. The automobile industry craters and the whole city cratered, which is what happened. The automobile industry cratered, the housing market cratered, Detroit filed bankruptcy. Now in Atlanta, conversely, you've got a mixed industry sector here. If you look at the pie chart here, look at the graphs. You've got from manufacturing, construction, government, education, health, trade, financial services. You've got a cross section here. Yeah, you've got all those cool names: Delta, AT&T, UPS. Those are all big name companies. Coca-Cola, Wachovia. These are big name companies. But what's neat about it, what's great about the economy in Atlanta is that you've got a diversity in what the job market is. What does that mean? It means that's going to be good for the economy. It's going to be good for growth. The housing industry there continues to grow. The ROIs there are not as strong as what you're going to see in places like Birmingham, Alabama, but the appreciation there in some pockets of Atlanta are extremely strong. So with that, I'm going to hand the controls over to Lori. I want to thank everybody again for being on here today. Again, we're going to take questions at the conclusion of today's webinar. So again, to the right of your screen, you'll see a chat box, and then down below that, you'll see a little thing that says questions. If you just click on that, you can type in your questions into the chat box, and we'll answer your questions at the conclusion of today's webinar. So with that, Lori, thanks so much for being here.
Charlie, thank you. Thank you for that great industry information. Atlanta is definitely a booming industry-based town. I like all the jobs that they have there. The thing that we're really enjoying about Birmingham is the cash flow that we can get there. And so it's definitely a market that's ready to pop. And so we're encouraging people to make a decision and get in there. We've got 2 months left of this year, and I just really think 2013 is the best year to be investing. And we're at the bottom, heading up. So anyway, I'm Lori Graymont. I'm the host of Real Estate 360. It's a radio show that is about anything and everything on real estate. Today is actually my airing day at 3 o'clock, which is why we're doing our webinar at 10 this morning. And, it's great information. I encourage you to tune in. You can tune in over the Internet if you're not local here. And I interview, top people that are very knowledgeable. I grew up in an industry of real estate, basically a family environment of real estate. My mom was a realtor, but also an investor. And so I lived my life moving into broken houses and learning to rehab by physically rehabbing things. And it pretty much became my life. You know, when I moved to college, I bought my first property. It was $500 down. It was a HUD home. And I was able to rent it out and afford it while I was going to college. Actually made money, cash flow. It's where I got addicted to cash flow. And since then, I've been rehabbing, you know, single family, multifamily. I developed a duplex community. I've done multifamily, and I've syndicated many different projects. And through all of that, I have learned a lot, which is why I'm going to share with you my top 10 costliest mistakes. And they're not all mine, but they're ones that I have either encountered personally or encountered through the coaching and mentoring that I've done over the many years. So Summit Assets Group we founded late in 2009, and the whole idea was that we would be following what the markets, you know, are giving us. And the whole idea was that we would provide quality cash flow investments. So we started out in Atlanta, and we have moved to Birmingham. And the reason we moved to Birmingham is it's not so much that we moved, but we added it. We still believe in Atlanta, but Birmingham is providing the cash flow that we saw in Atlanta in 2010. And I have to tell you that I have clients that are cashing out in Atlanta right now. So I think we're going to see the same thing. We provide note investments. And this is for the investor that wants to earn on real estate but doesn't necessarily want to be a landlord. And then we educate and coach investors that just want to get in and get their hands dirty and do it themselves. So we've had over 1,400 transactions since 2009, so we have a little bit of experience behind us. And we feel like we understand investors. We bring experience, you know, we bring some age, some life behind us. Still plenty of life ahead of us, but some behind us. We're very business orientated. We want to make sure that we are treating our clients in the best way that is possible, and we have verifiable results. We're loyal, we have integrity, and we're accessible. So before we get into the 10 costliest mistakes, let's just start with the basic question, why real estate? The best and easiest answer is that it's real. It's tangible. You can go touch it. You can look at it. Most importantly, you can live in it. And the last time I looked, people preferred houses over tents. It's a little more stable, especially with all the weather we have. So, you know, it's something that is in demand. It's insurable. You can't insure a stock portfolio, but you can insure a house against different catastrophes. So that's a key piece. It offers us tax advantages, and it has increasing demand. Now, in 2008, when we should have all been buying up the houses, you could hardly give a house away. But now we're at the point of where it's socially acceptable to start buying houses again. And the demand is increasing. We not only have hedge funds coming into the marketplace, but we have foreign investors. Charlie had indicated that the Japanese TV crew followed us around in Birmingham. They contacted us. They were looking for a way to share with the Japanese investors that the U.S. market has started to recover, and it's a good time to get in. They kind of wanted to prod them along because the Chinese have been investing here for a couple of years, and the Japanese are being a little more conservative. So they wanted to prod them along, and so they sought out a tour to join so that they could show that there is demand for these homes. So we have the foreign investors coming in, and actually foreign investors are a larger contingency of buyers than the hedge funds are. Then we have our own population that want to become homeowners again. The government has made it easier for them to qualify for loans now, and they're looking at making the loan limits on investors a little bit higher. So instead of the 10 loans, we're looking at maybe going back up to 14. So all these things create demand. And then you add on top of that the fact that we haven't built in the last 6 years, prices are going to go up. The other thing about real estate is that you can use leverage. And leverage is typically referred to as getting a loan on it, but there's other ways to leverage real estate. So the key piece of putting all this together is that when you invest, you want an investment that's going to increase faster than inflation. Because if your investment is just going up equal to inflation, you're keeping status quo, but you're not growing your money. So the whole idea is you want to invest in something that grows faster, which is why people try to get returns like 10% or, you know, they go crazy and go after something that's 25%. We'll talk about risk later, but they're trying to get ahead of inflation. And if you look back for the last 40 years, even with the big dip that we had, real estate has increased faster than inflation in almost every major marketplace. You add to that the leverage of a loan, and you have a wealth-building machine. Now, most people get the concept. Most people will say, yeah, I understand, or they'll even verify. My folks bought a house in the Bay Area, 30 years ago, and they paid $25,000 for the home, and now it's worth $1.5 million. They verify out of their own mouth. But then you ask them if they own anything, and the answer is no. Why? What's stopping them? It's simple. It's fear. Now, some people say, well, I'm not really fearful. There's other things. There are some other things. For example, we naturally avoid pain. And let's say that you are an investor and you are in the marketplace during the crash and you have some short sales or foreclosures. It's hard to get past that and get back in. So we naturally want to avoid that pain. We seek social proof. What is everybody else around us doing? And that's why back in 2008, when you could buy houses for nearly nothing, people were not buying houses because people weren't buying houses. It was kind of like they were waiting for one person, such as Warren Buffett, to say it was okay and then jump in. People sometimes feel like they don't have enough knowledge to do it, and so they don't want to get in. Or they have a lack of money or a lack of time. Now, all of these things can be overcome, and you can get in the marketplace. You just have to be able to identify what the issue is and work past it. Now, the topic of fear, you have to realize that it's an emotion. It comes up, like imagine walking down an alley and somebody jumps out at you. You can't hold back the fear or the reaction. But what you can do is you can control the risk elements. You can choose to not walk down that alley. You can, sort of control the reaction in, are you going to lash out and hit the person, or are you going to turn around and run the other way? And that's what we want to do is when we are looking at making an investment in real estate, if fear is one of the things that comes up, then we have to say, well, what is my fear about? Is it about not knowing enough? Is it about the risk of losing money? And then you put in factors, or you reduce the risk in those areas to make sure that that fear doesn't come true. So we want to control the risk factors in order to reduce our level of fear. So courage. Do you have the courage to take a calculated risk? Do you have the courage to be criticized or scrutinized? If you're doing something that nobody else in your family or friends group is doing, they might say something. Are you willing to move out of your comfort zone or to sacrifice something today for tomorrow, such as your time or your money? And are you willing to stay committed when things go wrong? That's what courage is about. And sometimes it takes you to move forward with courage despite the fear and make an investment. So what I want to do with this next portion here is share with you the top 10 costliest mistakes. And I'm doing this because I love to see people invest in their future by investing in real estate. I really have a passion for real estate and helping people with it, but I don't want to see you step forward and make a mistake and then never move forward in your finances, never build the wealth that you're looking for. So the first one, we're going to go in order from 10 down to 1. And I'm not like David Letterman with drum rolls or anything like that. We're just going to go through these here. The 10 costliest mistakes. The first one is, this house is so cute. A lot of people will buy on emotion or what it looks like. And we're talking about buying investments. We're not talking about buying a home that you're going to live in. Of course, when you walk into a home you're going to live in, you're going to buy an emotion. That's what we like about owning real estate. Because as an investor, if I have a nice home and I've held it through a few years, I'm going to sell it to a homeowner who's going to buy on that emotion. And on that emotion, they'll pay more than what they would if they were an investor. But you have to put on your thinking cap. You have to be a wise and shrewd investor. You have to know, is the price the right price? And do the numbers make sense? And as long as the numbers make sense, buy it. Okay? So here, which is the better deal? Doesn't this house look lovely? This is my $2,000 investment. I bought this house for $2,000. You can tell that it's a burnout. The windows are broke out up on the top. It's boarded up. It has lead paint hanging from the ceiling from the fire. It's beautiful. Well, this one's beautiful too. And this is a almost new construction house. Now, these are two types of real estate deals. And if you were to go just on the looks, most likely everyone will pick this beautiful house here as being a better deal until you hear the numbers. This particular house here has got a negative cash flow of $2,000 a month in a marketplace that's only going up 5% a month. I'm sorry, not a month, 5% a year. So it's going to be a long time before this house appreciates enough to cover that negative cash flow. Beautiful house, but the numbers don't work. Now if we go back to my ugly house, if I can get back there, this house here, as I mentioned, I paid $2,000 for it. And actually when I got the pictures I cried because I thought, oh my gosh, what have I bought? But the very next day after my sign was hung on it, I got an offer of $4,000. So in one day, I made 100% profit. That was a pretty good deal. Ugly house, good deal. Okay. So you have to remember that what you're buying in real estate is not your home. Analyze the numbers first and make sure they work. Don't decide on emotion, but if you are buying a long-term hold and you want to rent it out and you eventually want to sell it, you do have to recognize it does have to be pleasing and functional in order to make money, okay? I'm not saying don't look at those things. I'm just saying those are not the first things you should look at. All right, number 9, analysis paralysis. Now, I live here in the Bay Area, and we have lots of engineers and, analytical people, and they love the numbers. So number 10 is an issue because they're stuck in numbers and they're going to be there. The problem is they get stuck in the numbers and they never make a decision. And that doesn't do any good either because the one thing you never get back in life is time. So if you're sitting there spending all the time analyzing and never pull the trigger, you're not going to make any investment. So do the analysis of your numbers, make a decision, and then put it into contract and include a due diligence contingency. Now, sometimes when I'm working with my coaching students, they'll call me with this really great deal, and they'll be so excited, and I'll say, okay, well, get it under contract. They'll go off, and they'll start doing more comps, and they'll drive by, and they'll get an inspection done on it, and they'll call me back a week later, and I'll say, well, did you get it under contract? And they'll say, no, I was doing my due diligence. And of course I prod them, go get it under contract right now. And so they move forward and they finally present an offer only to find out that it's already under contract by somebody else. The reality is they took too much time analyzing the property and didn't take action. So if under the initial look of the numbers, it looks like it's going to work, put it under contract. Then finish your due diligence. Number 8, plan. What plan? In the real estate market, the key thing is what is your exit? How are you going to get out of the property? That's where you're going to make money. The saying is you make your money on the purchase. Okay, you make your spread or your potential for money on the purchase. You never get that money until you exit. Okay, that's the key thing. So you have to have an exit plan, and not just one, but you should have 2 or 3 different exit plans for every property in case the one you're thinking of doesn't work. Once you have that, then you get to the money. You know, there's different ways to work in real estate. You can wholesale properties, which is simply, you know, taking a contract on a property and selling it to somebody else for a little bit more than what you put it under contract as. There's the fix and flip, where you go in, you fix it up, and you flip it out to a retail buyer. There's the buy and hold, which is what our turnkey model is. You buy the property, you rent it out, you hold it for the economy to recover, and then you sell it, and you capitalize on that growth. There's other things that you can do to properties, such as use change, you know, taking a single family, making it a duplex, all of that kind of stuff. But you have to understand when you're making a purchase on a property, which exit is going to work for you. So investing is a tool to get you to your goal. A deal is only a deal if it fits you. You need to have multiple exit plans. Oops. All right, so this one here is number 7. Have no fear, the Lone Ranger is here. You know, this is one of my favorite ones because I work with investors all the time, and I do it in a coaching method. I also meet lots of them at the different associations or RIAs that I go to. And it's usually the new investors that feel like they're the only one that has a good deal, and they don't want to talk to anybody about that good deal. And they struggle to get through it on their own. You know, the real estate community is one of the most open communities that I've ever been part of. Nobody hides information. Everybody's willing to step out and share information and help on deals. And are there some people that will steal a deal? Yes, but if you are a wise investor, that's not going to happen to you because you're going to get it under contract and protect it. So my point on this being the Lone Ranger is real estate is not a single person sport. It's a team sport. You need to be in a community of investors. You need to have yourself surrounded with a team of support, such as a CPA, an attorney, some general contractors or specialized contractors. You need to have a property inspector on your team, a lender, other investors like joining the local RIAs. You should have a mentor or a coach that's helping you if this is something you haven't done. You know, it saves you so much time. One of the things that I heard a few years ago was that wisdom bought through experience is very expensive. Okay, so wisdom bought through experience is very expensive. And you think about it, if you go out and you make a mistake and it costs you money, that's money. But the other thing that that mistake cost you was time. And time, like I mentioned before, is the only thing you never get back. So if somebody else has already gone through what you're doing and they can save you time and money, it's cheaper, even if you have to pay them, to have them coach you than it is to experience it on your own. And one of my famous sayings, I have a lot of these sayings, but one of my famous sayings is, you will pay for your education one way or another. Number 6, costliest mistakes, wearing the tool belt. What I mean by this is you're actually, let's say you're going to buy a fix and flip. You're in there doing the rehab yourself. And what you might think is, oh, well, I'm saving the cost of a contractor. And great, you're saving the cost of the contractor. But while you're in there doing the rehab, you're not finding another deal. So you need to look at what is your highest and best use. If you're an investor, you should be investing. You should be looking for investment deals and managing a contractor that's doing the rehab. Remember, investing is a business, and you have to run it that way. Businesses that are thriving don't typically do it on one person. They have an entire team, and everybody on that team functions at their highest and best use. That's what your job is. Leverage, you can leverage people. You can leverage their time. You can leverage their knowledge. And that's the key to growing bigger than yourself. So hire and partner everything except what you're the best at. Number 5, tunnel vision. It's not hard when you get one of your deals that you're so excited about to focus on that deal only. To have that deal consume your life. And you start to forget that you should keep watching for more deals, and you forget to keep first things first. You know, first things first is, everybody has their own first thing first, but mine is my family. And so all of a sudden you're in a deal, and that deal becomes your life. You're at it, you know, working it, thinking about it, living it, and you kind of forget everything else. And so it's really important when you're doing investing to have a schedule of what things you're going to do on what days, including your personal time and spending time with the people you love. Okay, and it's not typically taught that way. When we do our time planning, a lot of times we'll put everything we have to do in there, and we forget the people we want to be with. And I teach people to schedule it in. All right, number 4, costliest mistake, pouring out good money after bad money. First and foremost, we don't like to make mistakes. I'm sure if I asked everyone to raise their hand if they like to make mistakes, I wouldn't see me, but I can't see me anyway because we're on a webinar. But people don't like to make mistakes. The thing they hate worse than making a mistake is admitting they made a mistake. And so a lot of times we will try to fix that mistake by pouring on more money. We think somehow we're going to fix it. You know, we got to make it, we got to get it turned around. And in reality, if it was a bad deal, it's still a bad deal. Now it just has more money and more energy thrown at it. So the best thing that you can do when you recognize that it was a mistake and that it was bad money is to let go. To learn from it and to move on quickly so that you don't spend time and energy on something that isn't going to turn around. This is the herd mentality. It is the costliest mistake number 3. And it's up at the top. You know, 1, 2, 3 are the most big, are the bigger ones. This one is up because we don't like to be different. And it's interesting, if you look at the investing world, there's traditional investments and there's alternative investments. And even those words create a difference. The traditional investments is the stock market. Traditional implies that it's normal. It's okay. We should be doing it. Alternative says, you're a little different. You sure you want to do that? Guess what's alternative? It's real estate. Yeah. So, you know, it's kind of like, okay, the minute you decide to be a real estate investor, now you're an alternative investor. I pride myself on being a contrarian. I do almost everything in my life different than everyone else. I mean, I have 4 kids instead of 2. I homeschool my kids instead of putting them in private school. I live on 1.5 acres, and I milk my own cow for my milk. You know, it's okay to be different, to do what's right for you. And this whole herd mentality is, you know, oh gosh, you don't want to invest in real estate. It's risky. Don't you remember what just happened? We just went through the biggest recession. Look at how many people lost their houses. So we have this mantra coming at us from the news and from every direction. But the truth of the matter is, if you look at what the retirement looks like of people who did it the traditional way, they're starving. If you go out to the Social Security Benefits Administration and you look at the data that's out there, it shows that men, single men right now that are 65 years and older, have a net worth average of $170,000, and their annual income is $27,000, and most of that is coming from the benefits they get from Social Security. Okay, so their net worth is $170,000. How would they do a 4% rule on that? How would they live on that? You know, the whole 4% rule, whatever you have in the stock market, you can pull out 4% and live on that during retirement on $170,000? That doesn't work. The math doesn't work. But imagine if that $170,000 was a couple houses that were paying $825 a month each. You know, that's what you can do. And is it different? It is different. But you know what? If you follow the herd, you might end up on welfare. because that's the direction the herd's going. So you have to think for yourself. You have to plan this for yourself. Number 2 is greed. We saw greed in the run-up, 2006, 2007, before the bubble. People would go out and they would put contracts together on houses that they knew they couldn't afford just to try and capitalize on the appreciation. There was no fundamentals behind their decision. Fundamental would be that you have cash flow to cover the mortgage that's going to be there. There was none of that. And because of the greed, they threw caution to the wind, and it hurt them financially. So pay attention to the deals that you're getting into. Make the deals solid. And one of the things that we notice is that when people are desperate, they have a tendency to gamble. And what I mean by desperate is, let's say that you lost a job and you're trying to use a little bit of retirement money that you saved up to earn an income. And somebody brings to you a deal and says, you know what, you can get 30% return on this money. I'm going to tell you, if that's what they're telling you, there's a lot of risk associated with that. If there's a high reward like that, there is higher risk. If somebody comes to you and says they can give you 10%, that's more real, And the thing you have to remember with the higher risk means higher chance of loss. So don't be greedy. Go after small, consistent deals that pay off a little bit each way, or even some lower interest. It's just a better way to go. And this is number 1. Isn't she cute? I just want that deal so much. A lot of times people want to become a real estate investor. They attend these seminars and they get all stoked up emotionally about the dreams that come with building a real estate business. And I'm all for that because I live that life. But the truth is, you can't make a decision on a bad deal just because you want to get a deal under your belt. Don't go and underestimate the cost because you think, oh, well, I can get the cost under to make this deal work. Or I can probably push the revenue a little bit so I can make this deal work. Or, I'm willing to do it and not make anything because the experience is good for me. And this all comes to one thing. You're trying to justify the deal. The deal either works or doesn't work on the numbers. No matter how much you try to manipulate them, they're still going to be the numbers. And you don't have to learn how to do a deal on a loss. Isn't it better to gain and do a deal? I'm a person that wants my cake and I want to eat it too. Don't show me a cake and tell me I can't eat it. I want it. So that's what I want for you. And, I think that you can do that. You can make money and a deal. And, yeah, you might have to wait a couple weeks instead of waiting, a couple days. But they're out there. The deals are out there. So I'm just going to review these real quick for you. Number 10, don't buy an emotion. Number 9, don't get stuck in analysis paralysis. Make sure you have a plan. Make sure that you're not investing as a Lone Ranger. Don't be wearing the tool belt. Hire it done. Open up and watch everything that's going around. Make sure you plan your daily schedule so that you remember to keep first things first. Don't pour good money after bad. If you realize it's a bad mistake, admit it quickly and move on. Don't get stuck in the herd mentality. Don't look around at what everyone else is doing. Do what's right for you. Don't let greed run you forward because a lot of times, it'll turn bad. I think the saying is pigs get fat, but hogs get slaughtered. Don't be a hog on that one. And lastly, don't be too motivated to get into a deal. There are good deals out there. Wait for a good deal to come. So I want to share how we at Summit can help you avoid these mistakes. The first thing is we have a done-for-you solution. Maybe you don't have time, maybe you don't have a lot of knowledge, but you know that real estate is going to help you build the wealth you need for retirement. Well, that's what we do. We go out and we pick premium homes in neighborhoods that we know are going to grow. We put a tenant in there. We rehab them before we put the tenant in there, and we give you a solid cash flow. If you were to buy this house for $85,900, all cash, you'd have an annual return of 7.3%. Now, that doesn't jump off the page and say, hey, I'm 30%. But you know what? That is a solid cash flow. And that's just the cash flow part of it. Now you add in the tax benefit, you add in leverage if you go and get a loan on it, and you add in the appreciation. And you know what? You are going to see something in the 20 to 25% return pretty easily. And it's safe and solid. Now, I know some of you out there are like, you know, I just want to get into a rehab deal. I really do. Well, right now, it's hard to find inventory, but we've got our sources for inventory. So you can buy a property from us and rehab it. If you're buying in our areas, such as Georgia, Alabama, we can even introduce you to some of our rehab teams and connect you with sources there. And so let's say you were to buy this house for $75,000 and put 10 into it. You know, it's partly, you know, do your own. You can get an 8.5% return on that. If you were to flip it after you do that, then you get a lot more. But this is just holding it long term. And then there's some of you out there that are like, you know, I just want to learn to do it on my own. I want to do it all on my own, but not as a Lone Ranger, because I heard Lori talk about that, and I don't want to do that. So what we've decided to do is put together some weekly live webinar group sessions. So basically you log in at your specified time. There'll be some other people on the line with you. And I'll go through a topic, and then we'll have an open forum where we can talk about deals, we can talk about questions. And during this particular coaching, you also will be taught how to do database like buying criteria. This helps those people who get stuck with analysis paralysis move forward, because you've got the buying criteria. When it meets that, you write a contract. I work with each of you to create a personalized goal, you know, so that you know what fits for you, your personality, your risk factors, and you're going to have a goal for the year of what you want to accomplish. I work with you on how to source properties, analyze the deals, and find the buyers. You know, real estate is really pretty simple. There's three components: the properties, the money, and the buyers. And I'm willing to help you find all of those and put a deal together. I'm willing to share my experience, my over 30 years of experience, which I paid too much for with time and money, but I'm willing to help you do that. I'm going to show you what office systems you need set up and how to create a daily schedule. These two pieces here will help you prevent getting tunnel vision or working, you know, 18-hour days to move a deal forward. We'll share with you some sample scripts and contracts, and then you can have ongoing unlimited email support. So during the month, if you've got questions, you just email me and I'll respond. So it's with me personally. And then this is the biggest one here, unlimited deal review. You know, you come across a deal, and I have my students oftentimes come across the deal of the century every day. And, you know, when we start to pick the deal apart, guess what? It's not the deal of the century. And the reality is there are some deals out there, and they do find them. It just takes a little bit of time, but once they find them, they're good deals. And so that's what I'm here for, is to offer my experience. And most often, my students want me to partner with them because they want me to walk them through the deal. I'm here to do that. You know, if you want to do it on your own, there's no problem either. But that's what we're offering. So normally, I charge $6.95 a month. You can join the first of any month. You can end at the end of any month. There's no, you have to sign up for X number of sessions or anything like that. It's just weekly. You get on the phone, and it's actually a webinar, and we just help you. Now, for the people who've attended this webinar, I've decided that I'll do it for $450 a month, and I can tell you right now the amount of knowledge that's shared is well worth the $450. I mean, if I keep you from paying $450 for an appraisal because the deal isn't good, I've saved you the $450. So if this is something you're interested in, this is not high pressure or anything like that. You just simply need to give us a call into the office, The number's there, the email's there. We can set you up on a credit card so that it's easy. And more importantly, if you want to buy a turnkey product or a wholesale product, you call into the same office. We're all the same people. What we found is that sometimes people start down the training and then they realize it's really not for them. They just want to have a long-term investment. And so that is what we want to help, is help you determine what's right for you. So I encourage you to give a call in. I can only take 25 people on a call at a time, so it is limited to 25 people. You know, my team here, we have over 65 years of experience. As I mentioned before, we've sold over 1,400 properties since 2009. What does that mean for you? That means that we're here to help you, that we've got the experience to help you. So you just need to ask. And one of my favorite quotes, success is not final and failure is not fatal, but it's the courage to continue that counts. And it's not just the courage to continue, it's the courage to get started that counts. So this is our contact information, and if you have any questions regarding the products, the turnkey, the 10 questions, you can enter them into the little webinar box there. And Charlie, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Lori. That was some great information, and appreciate everybody staying on. Went a little bit longer today than we did yesterday, but we're going to take questions now. As Lori said, to the right of your screen, you've got a dashboard, and there's a little button there that says questions. Just click on that, and you can type in your question. We had one question, Lori, during the webinar, and I'm going to ask it. If it's okay with you, I'm going to answer because this literally just happened to me last week. The question was, explain the due diligence clause. Why put under contract without finishing due diligence? And this happened to me last week. I had a duplex in Birmingham. It was a screaming deal. It was a $70,000 property, easily worth. That was after rehab. $70,000 after rehab. That was the cost, $69,900. It was worth easy $110,000, $115,000. I had an interested party. I encouraged her to put it under contract with a due diligence clause, allowing her 10 days to finish her due diligence. She didn't want to do that. She wanted to do her own analysis paralysis and make sure the numbers worked and this and that and the other thing, even though she'd already done that. Long story short, 3 days later it sold. So what is the due diligence clause? Basically what you do is you put it under contract and you give yourself 10 days to finish your due diligence. Generally you can pull out any time during that 10 days if you don't like something that you see. So you've got time to back out, but at least it gives you, at least it's under contract and you have the opportunity to, you know, finish your due diligence, but you don't run the risk of losing the deal. And that was just one of those things where somebody just got just a little bit shy, just didn't want to, you know, take that leap of faith and put it under contract, even though there was out clauses in it, and lost the deal. So that's just an example of that. So any other questions? We'll be glad to take them now. And Lori, you want to add anything to that?
No, just the whole thing about the due diligence is you don't have to have a justified reason to not move forward. So it's sort of like putting something on layaway while you go home and think about it.
Yep, good analogy. Okay, is this webinar recorded? Yes, it was recorded. I'm going to be sending it out to everybody. So everyone will get a copy of the recorded webinar. Takes typically a couple hours to download it from YouTube or into YouTube. Yes, I will be able to get that out to everybody today. Okay, I don't see any other questions here. That was the only one we had. I want to thank everyone for being on here. We're going to leave our contact information up on the screen, so if you've got questions, feel free to give Lori or myself a call. Again, I want to thank everyone for being here. If you're interested in joining Lori's team and being part of these webinars, you see her contact number there. You can also give me a call if you want, and I can direct you to Annie in the corporate office there, and she can help you out. So again, I want to thank everybody. I don't see any questions, Lori, so we'll go ahead and sign up. I want to thank everybody for being here today, and we'll hope to talk to you soon. We'll leave our numbers up here for a few seconds.
Thanks, Charlie.
Yeah, thank you, Lori. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye-bye.